Latina Leading Diversity, your host, Angelique Alvarez, Head of Supplier Diversity and Inclusion here at ATR International. For those of you who follow me through blogging and my monthly newsletter, know that I am passionate about sharing valuable content relating to all areas of diversity, whether you're in a corporate diversity role, supplier diversity, diversity and inclusion, procurement, a diverse business owner, organization, or nonprofit supporting businesses. My goal is to bring topics to light that can not only provide exposure to being featured, but educate others through the knowledge shared. Today, I am very thankful and excited to sit with Heather Cox, president and co-founder of Certify, my company. Not only is she wonderful and inspiring to be around, Heather is a dynamic speaker, business owner, wife, and mother of 5. Today, she will be sharing a little bit about her offerings and teaching entrepreneurs how to strategically attract clients, make more money, save time and resources through certification. Thank you so much, Heather. I appreciate you being featured today and sharing all of the wonderful knowledge that you have. You are so inspiring, and I just love your energy, the light that you bring to any room, even Zoom. So I'm excited to you, and I'd love for you to just kind of share a little bit about yourself and your company, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to be here. I've known you for years, so this is super fun to see you in a little bit of a different light,
I
right?
love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm Heather Cox. I'm president and co-founder of Certify, my company. We've been in business about 13 years. I always have to do the math, like which kid. It's my oldest was about 1 when we started the company, and she's 14 now. Because that's what you do. You have a baby, you move across country, and you start a business, right? How else would you do it, right? So we are like specialty, what we do better than anybody else out there is we facilitate diversity certifications for diverse suppliers, and we do educational programming. I'm on tons of panels, love it. It's one of my favorite things to do. Breakout sessions all around supplier diversity and diversity certification. Now, most of our work actually comes through the Fortune 1000 will engage us, and then some of their prime suppliers as well, which we'll get into. They'll engage us to work with their suppliers they're already doing business with because they're not certified yet. So that's what our core competency is. But we really love the educational component of it as well.
Thank you so much. And I think it's so important because that's one of the things that's so valuable. And I think today, not only is it going to be valuable for anyone listening that is, considering certification, didn't know they even qualify for this certification or many certifications, but how companies or anyone new to a diversity role who's looking to grow and really exceed in their role, growing the spend, can partner with you and just be able to contribute to the bottom line of supplier diversity by doing more business, growing that business. So I'd love to start by maybe just talking about the 5 types of certification. I know,
Yes.
that there's also, some people think, is there a certain size I need to be? What type of certifications are out there? Do I even qualify? What is it? I'm woman owned, but does woman owned or minority owned just mean that you're strictly going to get a certification, or what is kind of behind that? So we'll see your expertise, and you can share with others.
So there are 5 main categories. Yes, you were 100% correct in that. So and it's interesting the way you asked that question, because so many people will say, I need to get minority certified. And I'm like, are you an ethnic minority? But that's like a catch-all phrase, which is actually changing. You'll hear now people saying XBE instead of MBE for the catch-all phrase, because so
Love
the
it.
5 categories is women.
Noted, because
Noted, right.
I'm learning something. See, I'm already, not only is everyone learning something today, but I'm learning something today. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. So it's women, ethnic minorities, which is Black, Hispanic, Asian Indian, Asian Pacific, and Native American. Then there is veterans, which also includes service disabled veterans, LGBT. And then the last one is the disability owned business enterprise certification. And that is probably the one that's the most underknown and under estimated, because people don't know what it means. And so I always leave that one for last. It takes a little bit more explanation. And what it means is that, so across the board, the eligibility requirements are the same, right? It must be 51% or more of that demographic you're certifying, owned, operated, and controlled. So often people just think it's ownership, but it's so much more. We can go into that if you want to in a little bit. But the disability one means that the 51% or more ownership, operation, and control is by a person or people with a disability as defined by the ADA. So why do I say it like that? It's because disabilities are actually more than just not being able to see, hear, and walk. It's everything from thyroid conditions, sleep apnea, ADHD, anxiety, depression, autoimmune disorders. Obviously visual impairment, see, hearing impairment, mobility impairment, but it's arthritis. It's like there's so many, if you have a severe allergy to something, like if you have a severe allergy to, let's say, mushrooms or whatever, it's anaphylactic, you cannot run your business the same way. You can't travel the same way. You have to constantly be aware of what you're doing. If you're a recovering addict, how many of the conferences we go to have happy hours? There's always alcohol. If you're a recovering alcoholic, it is very difficult to take part in those business activities. All of those, if they take management, meaning a medication, a therapy, a mechanism to manage that so you can effectively run your business, that could possibly qualify as a disability.
You taught me that in the last conversation that we had pre this. It's like a light bulb went off. And I even reached out to a woman-owned business that I want to get certified through you. So I was like, hey, did you also know that not only would you be able to qualify for this, certification, there's also this
Yes.
certification. So thank you. This is very important information, I think, for those who didn't know. And I've been kind of in this little world in my area for 12 years. So thanks. Go ahead.
No, but there's so many people who don't know about it. My husband actually was at an event not too long ago, and he was talking about the disability and certification. This woman said, "You don't know what you're talking about. There's no such thing." And he's like, my wife's like the expert.
He's the student. My teacher said.
Right. And so,
said.
so she was like, "I've been doing this for 30 years in supplier diversity. You're wrong." He was like, "Can you reach out to her? You can tell her because she made me feel dumb." But it's just it's newer. It's the newest of the organizations. And I would say it's kind of where NGLCC was maybe 10 years ago, where people were a little bit afraid maybe to come out as part of the LGBTQ community. Now, people don't understand, and that's one of the reasons I got our company certified when I realized we were eligible for the disability certification. I know we were very well known in the supplier diversity world, and I wanted to help remove any of the taboo that we possibly could by being certified. And it's an amazing organization. So you also mentioned size standards and personal net worth questions. None of those are part of the private sector certification world. So there's kind of two groupings. There's the private sector, and then there's the public sector. And most people just assume that diversity is public sector. They don't even know that diversity and supplier diversity is such a huge initiative and cost benefit and revenue benefit on the private sector. And so the public sector tends to have a lot of those size standard and personal net worth thresholds. You don't see those in the private sector. They want you to be $1 billion company. They want you to be worth $1 billion. They don't want to limit you or cap you out. So they don't have those on the private sector side. And that is really more for the Fortune 1000, those private sector certifications. If you're looking for, but to any of the companies that you might want to do business with, that's not a state organization. That's the private sector, and they do not have those size personal net worth thresholds. The public sector, both the federal and the state, they do have those.
Going into the certifications, there's obviously value in becoming certified once one is educated on the benefits and opportunities that can arise. But, there's also benefits to having, depending on the business that you're going after, maybe we can educate others together on, even having more than one certification.
Yes.
Certify, right? Like woman-owned, minority-owned, disability. I mean, in counting the spend. If you could share a little bit about that, I think that could be helpful for others also wanting to, dive deeper into the opportunities.
And as a supplier diversity manager, if I say something different than how you do it at your company, please jump in and say your piece. So companies have to report their spend, and oftentimes we're asked like, oh, so they need to check the box, but no, because study after study will show you that companies with robust supplier diversity programs make more money. The shareholders do better. No company is going to spend so much money on a company because it's the right thing to do. They do it because bottom line, it's about the bottom line. And so that's why companies are doing this. but you can't measure what you can't count. And they can't say we're doing really well with diverse businesses if they don't actually know you're diverse. So that's why the certification is so important. So when they're reporting who they're doing business with, they can't double dip, right? They couldn't count Certify My Company as woman and disability owned in the same reporting, right? They have to choose. Are we counting them in our women's certification, or are we counting them as a disability owned business? Okay. So for that makes us much more valuable to our corporate clients, because they might say, wow, we really hit our goal. We hit our internal goals or our externally set goals by our other clients for how much we're going to spend with women owned businesses. We didn't meet our disability owned business goals. So we're going to move Certify My Company over to that. And so that makes me more valuable. Now, sometimes, so for example, we got a corporate client last year that required the state of Illinois certification. So we did have to get a different certification because that client had to report their diversity spend to the state of Illinois. Now, some of our other clients that are utilities in the state of California need us to have the CPUC certification. So one of the first things we always do with any potential client is determine the best certification or certifications for them based on who they're currently doing business with and who they want to do business with, because that will make a difference.
And as far as like leveraging certification, I think that we both know through, our experience that you're not necessarily selling it, and that ultimately, your offerings and is what's going to get you the business, the pricing,
Yes.
everything else. But and I'm not going to lie, I think this is a very transparent like podcast. I remember being 11, 12 years in the big first year of my role in, selling a woman-owned, diverse-owned business and going in my pitch and kind of like, well, we're minority-owned, and there was, a supplier diversity manager who was really transparent with me. That was like, that's not what you need. You can't be doing that. Like, that's not how you want to go about it. And thankfully, I mean, to this day, we're good friends. I just went to her.
That's what it should be.
So
We should be helping each other learn like that.
Instrumental. It was so instrumental to my growth. Thankfully, it happened then, in the first few stages, but transparency is so important, and being able to elevate one another, help one another grow, educate one another on not necessarily selling your status, right? Do you ever come across those who think they're just going to get certified and now it's an open door for opportunity?
They're like, where's that $1 million contract? You said it was going to rain from the sky. And I'm like, I guarantee you, I did not say that, because I would never say that. Yeah. No, it's an extra benefit. It's not what you're selling. I don't care how many certifications you have. If you are not good at what you do, or you're way more expensive, you're not getting the gig. You have to be just as good and just as competitively priced, but that certification will help you get in the door, and it will help tip the scales in your favor. You still have to sell like any other sale you will ever do, but it's going to be that if they're like, oh, God, but these companies are so good, how are we ever going to decide? Oh, they're diversity certified. Now it just tipped the scales.
There you go. Yeah. No. Now we talk about, as a business, they're the ones getting certified, but it's important for those. I want to kind of go, we mentioned this a little bit a while ago, but on the corporate side and the value for corporations, you mentioned that you work with corporations, and I'm sure they're doing business with those who qualify for these certifications, where they can even grow the existing spend. And then I'm sure they also need to have the suppliers maintain their certification. And then when you go from succession plans and change of leadership and all of that, could you share a little bit of the value that you bring to a company through your offerings when it comes to those situations?
So for our corporate clients?
Yes.
So our corporate clients, so the majority of our corporate clients fall into a couple different buckets, right? So some of them are want to be part of the $1 billion roundtable, which, for those that don't know, it's an organization made up of 26 companies, right? I think it's 26 now, that spend $1 billion with a B with certified diverse businesses, and they recognize the 5 private sector certification organizations, which is the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, the National Minority Supplier Development Council, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, the National Veterans Business Development Council, and then Disability In. I had to think what that veteran one was for a second. I lost it.
We got him.
We got them all in there. So they recognize, so either our corporate clients are like, we really want to be part of that $1 billion roundtable. And so we will take, to your point, they already have relationships with companies that just aren't certified, and we'll, help transition them from classified to certified. Or they're already part of the $1 billion roundtable. You want to stay there because you have to report your spend every single year to the $1 billion roundtable organization for them to audit your reporting. And so, let's say you have one big supplier that gets sold, well, you might no longer qualify, or maybe they didn't do business with you this year, or whatever it is, right? So they'll have us to keep continuing their pipeline of making sure they're continually getting their businesses certified that are in their supply chain. The other ones typically are companies that have state requirements. So like the one I mentioned in Illinois. Or one of our big corporate clients is a big hospitality organization. And because they have properties in Indiana and Illinois, they are required to report their spend there. So our projects are specifically for those suppliers that are in Indiana and Illinois. So that's typically who we work with. So you might say like, well, why don't they just send them to one of the certifying organizations? We get that question a lot. Well, the certifying organizations cannot help a supplier get their certification done. That's like saying, I'm going to be your attorney, but I'm also going to be the judge. Right. Like you can't do that. It legitimizes the integrity of the certification process. So what we do, and a lot of times what happens is that entrepreneurs are really good at what they're really good at. What they're not really good at is paperwork and processes like that most of the time. You'll have a handful that are able to get it done, but most people will call, been on my to-do list for 3 years, 5 years. I just can't finish it. But it's because they just are focusing on their business, and entrepreneurs have a million things to do at any given point in the day. And so it's not instant gratification. It's super frustrating. It's very annoying to do the certification process. And so I am a huge advocate of outsource. I outsource everything I possibly can unless it needs my full attention. So what I often do is I'll say, okay, I know how much I bill myself out. People hire me for consulting. If it costs me more to do it myself or even break even, I'm outsourcing. And no questions asked, because my time, my frustration, I have 5 little kids. I have a husband who's like my 6th kid half the time. I have employees. I like to make sure that my therapy is the gym. So like I'm not
traveling at events.
I'm traveling events. Like I do not need to be working on things like my tax returns. Like that is not a good use of my time when I can outsource to somebody who's going to do it better and quicker. So that's usually what people have us do it. So the corporations have realized, they've been asking these suppliers for years, please get certified. And the suppliers are like, okay, I'm going to do it. It's not malicious why they're not getting it done. They just can't. They don't have the bandwidth for it. It's not something you want to give to your assistant because it's very sensitive, private information.
Absolutely.
And so by them offering our services, plus these are 2 different conversations a corporation is going to have with a supplier. Hi, they're like, Angelique, we noticed that you're a woman-owned business. We'd love you to get certified. Go to webank.org. Or they could say, hi, Angelique, we noticed that you're a woman-owned business. We'd love for you to get certified. It's so important to us, and we value it so much. We've engaged a resource to support you and make it easier for you. We're going to introduce you to the Certify My Company team. Like, that's a completely different conversation.
Not only that, let's not forget that you're actually a bridge between opportunities. You have all of these relationships with different supplier diversity teams. It also gives you an opportunity to know more about these companies. Yeah. It's almost like applying for an award, right? And you're like, okay, there's the review committee who's going to see my application. And while maybe I didn't win that award, maybe I did with the hopes that you do. But now someone knows who I am, has seen deeper into my added value, and can advocate for me with another individual. And I think it's huge for this. It's a huge opportunity on top of that you can say, hey, I know this women-owned business. I know this, minority-owned company who does that. Hey, so you're a service to other diversity managers who are looking for that too. So I think that's so huge, that network that you have, that you've built over, the course of your career and within this company.
Yeah, so the way we have the company organized is that each of our process managers, project managers, they have like a book of business, if you will. So they really get to know these entrepreneurs, these suppliers. So when I see opportunities coming through, or like, any of our corporate clients are like, do you happen to know anybody? Because I tell all of our corporate clients, never hesitate to ask me because I know so many people. And if I can make an introduction, I would
Imagine.
love to. And so they all my whole team knows their book of business. They know they're entrepreneurs. So if I'm like, hey, Maria, I need someone who does X, Y, I need someone who does a really great beverage business. She's like, call Nope, call Screwball, call whatever it is. They
Fantastic.
know them so that because I wanted to make sure that it's all about relationships. You know that. I mean, this
Yeah.
whole world is relationships.
Yes. And there's such a, just we've been certified for, probably 30 years. Before I've been
I was
with
like
the
one of the
company.
first companies then.
Yes, yes. And, since I've been in this role, within the network, I've seen so much value outside of that certification, just the network, just the
Network.
individuals, the mentorships that you have access to,
Yeah.
the education through the organizations. It's
Yeah.
literally a gift to be able to be a part of the network. And so I encourage any business that, qualifies to contact Heather, go through the process, and it gives you an opportunity to operate your business, not only own, but operate your business and have someone do that so that you can qualify for these certifications. So I think this is such a huge topic. I'm so excited that we kind of got to touch on it. There's so much more to that. I know you have all these
So much.
speaking engagements through your Instagram and your website that they can access. So
Yeah.
make sure you're, following Heather. And I'd love to just, spend a little bit more time. How did you get here, to this? Let's talk about your company and like really how you got here, what you're doing, what's going on, and how anyone can reach you.
So it's people ask me all the time, how'd you get into this? Because back in my day in college, there wasn't like a supplier diversity degree. There is now, funny enough, but there wasn't back in the day. And so it just so happened that when I was pregnant with that baby number one, right, I was trying to figure out what it was going to look like for me. I knew I was going to have to work. I just didn't know what that looked like. And so, although I still think I've been an amazing stay-at-home mom, nobody seems to agree with me, but I think I would have been so good at it.
I'm sure you would, but I'm sure you would have been really creative in what you were doing because you do so many different things. So you would have just like homeschooled like crazy and
Something.
you name it, everything. Yeah.
So I was like, so it's just asking women like a bunch of questions, like women that worked full time, that part time, executives, entrepreneurs. And I love entrepreneurs. They were so cool and had like the best energy. And I just thought they were just like living it. Like they just have the most, there's no such thing as balance when you're a working mom, right? But there's definitely like they had the most of it, I felt like, right? So I just kept asking them questions, and a few of them would start mentioning this application that their clients wanted to finish and they just couldn't get it done. So I'm like, what? You run like a multi-million dollar business. You can't do an application. I couldn't understand. It didn't make any sense to me. And so a few of them, I mean, there were all different size businesses. And so I went home and I was like, what is this that they're talking about? Right. And this is even before I understood the constraints of being an entrepreneur, the bandwidth constraints, but just what they're asking for, what it's called in Texas is not what it's called in New Jersey, is not what it's called in California. So if you're not sure what you're looking
Understand the
for,
language.
yeah, you know what you're looking for, you're like, I don't have a certificate of formation because where you live, it's in articles of organization. But how are you supposed to know that?
I didn't know that.
So that depends where you live. Some have a certificate and articles. Some just have a certificate. So when you're looking for this, you're getting frustrated. You're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get back to this later. And then 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years later, you're still not certified. So I said to a few of them, I'm like, I could do that for you. I have no idea. None. No idea what I was getting myself into at all. But I mean, I would say if someone asked me, like, what's your number one attribute of yourself or one of your top ones, resourcefulness. I'm probably one of the most resourceful people you will ever meet in your life.
Yeah.
It's a little generational, definitely, but it's also just who I am by nature. And so I just figured it out. And then they sent this friend, sent this friend, and eventually just like became a business, right? And so that's kind of how it started. And then it was really just women in the beginning. And then a few of them were like, well, can you do the minority? And then someone said, can you do the LGBT? So that part just grew organically. And then probably 6 or 7 years ago, the only company I've ever really viewed as a competitor, her name is Sarah Lou. I don't know if you ever met her. She decided she was in Northern California. She decided she was going to go out. She didn't want to do this anymore. She didn't want to work anymore. She didn't have to work anymore. And so she had a few corporate clients, and she said, when she told them she was leaving, they asked her, please find your replacement. Go find the consultant to take over your contracts. And she chose us.
That's
She chose
fantastic.
me. It was just me at the time, right? I didn't have a whole team at the time. And she chose us. And so that was really how we got our foot in the door in the corporate world. And ever since then, it was really funny. So many of the corporations I meet them at conferences, they're like, just so you know, we're never going to use you. And then 2 months later, so we had a conference with our executive team, and they really liked you. So, I don't know if you know who Pam Isom. I'm sure you know Pam Isom.
Of course, that's
Okay.
my co. We love Pam. Pam is incredible.
She does a whole talk on when they say no, it's just a new opportunity, right?
We definitely need to get Pam on this podcast to share. I remember seeing her on stage at WeBank sharing that, and I think we're going to save that. We're not going to give it away until she gets on here.
Right. But it really is true. Like, they'll tell you no. Yeah, they tell you no, but they don't even understand what they're saying no about. So that's why, like, someone's like, oh, so what's your sales cycle? I'm like, well, Johnson & Johnson was like 6 years of me courting them, because it took a long time for them and they were using Sarah Lou, right? So it just it takes a long time sometimes, but it's really about the relationships. But once you're in there, and to your point, people often think that the diversity certification is really just business development, but it's so much more. It's mentorships, as you mentioned. It's, I was able to take part in that Toyota mentorship program.
Access to capital now with all these programs that are out there, right?
So many amazing opportunities.
Educational programs,
Kellogg's, all of those executive, EMBAs. And so there's really no downside to it, but it is a tool. It's not a magic wand, right? You can't be like, I'm certified, and they're like, oh, well, you're signing the contract right now. It takes work,
like and gym membership, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So that's really how the company started. And then they got to be a point where I was like, I can't do everything. And so I made my first hire, and then
congratulations.
And then now we have a team of 6 people, and I have a fantastic team. So I have my account manager side, they handle all the registration portals, because I'm sure you are familiar with those registration portals.
You don't want to approach a company without checking their website and making sure you registered. Otherwise, the first thing they're going to say is send you right to that website and make sure you're registered.
So we'll do that
and annually. You got to make sure that certification that's renewed annually is also updated within that portal annually.
Exactly. So we'll do all of that for our clients as well. Even if they didn't hire us for certification originally, they can hire us to take over their recertification and manage their whole supplier diversity part of their company and do the registrations. And so we have, that with one side, then we have all the process managers who are working with the entrepreneurs directly to make sure that they're all their I's dotted, T's are crossed, because the biggest reason people are denied is not because they're not eligible. It's because their documentation is a mess, because entrepreneurs are not good at that. And so one of the best side effects, by the way, of certification is it is a fantastic housekeeping tool.
Yeah. Well, I want to congratulate you on your growing business, just your presence that you've grown through, the wonderful, amazing woman that you are. To think that you were inspired by these entrepreneurs to becoming an entrepreneur is huge. And then to see the success from one business owner, woman-owned business, supporting another, I mean, huge. So congratulations. Thank you so much for, just sharing everything. I'd love for you to just share how people can get a hold of you. I'll make sure to include it, but if you want to just throw out your website, your LinkedIn, we're going to get you flooded with hopefully a few more people, reaching out.
So we are at all of our social media handles are at Certify My Co. So Certify My CO, all spelled out, or not all one word, I should say. And then certifymycompany.com is the website. You can reach us at info@certifymycompany.com or through any of the social medias on LinkedIn. But we definitely love it. If you have an amazing, tag us in different, when you're doing posts, anything about diversity or products or services that are diverse owned, because we love, one day I'm going to figure out this affiliate marketing thing and I'll make some money on it. But for now, we just do it because we like to do it and share all the different diverse owned products and services and amazing businesses that we find out there. All the XBEs.
Thank you so much, Heather. I appreciate it today. Till the next conversation when I see you in person.
In Nashville.
Yes.